Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Andrew Netto, Malaysian stand up comedian. Let me first start off by saying thank you very much to the fantastic organizers for having me on board together with over 200 speakers for this virtual conference. It is a great pleasure to share this virtual stage with so many great people in various industries. A little bit about myself. I am a Malaysian stand up comedian and I started stand up comedy, let's say, 14 years ago at the tender age of 19. And it was actually by mistake, not to say by mistake, it was actually by chance that I got into stand up comedy. I was actually influenced by my cousin Kavin J, who at the time in 2006 came up to me one day and said, hey, listen, bro, there's a few things I want to do before I die. Because that same year, or the year before, actually, we had actually lost my cousin, Kavin's brother, at the very young age of 29. And Kavin told me, he says, buddy, listen, there's a few things I want to do before I die. And one of them is stand up comedy. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. Now, at this point, I've never actually seen a stand up comedian perform. The first actual stand up comedy DVD I watched was at the age of 18. My dad brought home a DVD of Russel Peters. Put it on and said, son, you should watch this guy. He's a chubby Indian fella like you, just talking rubbish and telling jokes on stage. And I watched it and I went, well, here's a job I could do, stand up comedy. This seems interesting. And Kevin called me up and says, listen, we're going to put a show together with about three other guys. None of us have any experience, and we're going to invite a bunch of friends to come and watch us. And we actually took place in a restaurant in Kuala Lumpur that has since shut down, hopefully not because of the show, but they've since gone out of business. And we had about maybe about 100 plus of our friends, and some of my childhood friends were there. And I'd actually gone on stage and done about 25 minutes of stand-up comedy, which was quite amazing for someone who had actually just found out what stand-up comedy was. I was always blessed with the gift of the gap, so I was lucky to go on stage. And a lot of people came up after the show and told me, "Says Andrew, this is great. It's something you should pursue. Stand up comedy is something you should pursue. You're really built for it." And I, of course, shut the idea down immediately because I come from a traditional Indian family. And in Indian families, we have our three career choices that everybody knows: doctor, lawyer, engineer. So obviously, when I came home and told my parents, that I wanted to do stand-up comedy, they weren't very amused. I told my father, I said, Pa, I want to do stand-up comedy. And my dad looked at me and he laughed. And then I laughed. And then he stopped laughing. And he was like, no, la, bro, this is not it. This is not, you can't make a life out of doing stand-up comedy. And when I first went out and did that show, I remember my dad just said, son, when you're on stage, make sure you don't say the wrong thing that can get you into trouble. I think advice that I've heeded based on my controversial topics sometimes on stage when I speak out against the government or when I speak out against religious injustices or racial injustices in Malaysia has landed me in some trouble over the years, but nothing too serious. Now, fast forward a little bit, we found out that there was actually an open mic night happening in, let me say, what's this place? It was happening in the Actors Studio in Bangsa Shopping Centre. And Kavin, we got invited to this, and Kavin's like, buddy, let's go for this. And we went, and that's when I met my now very good friends, Kwa Jen Han, as well as Papi Zach, and of course, Mr. Punchi Ho. These guys became very good friends, and we'd all actually gone out and done our open mic for the first time. And surprisingly, I did quite well. But little did I know, in the audience that day was none other than the godfather of Malaysian comedy, Mr. Harith Iskander. And now Harith had seen my show and he liked that little 10-minute bit that I had, and he found me as a very promising talent. Lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, I get a call, and this gentleman goes on the phone and says, good evening, is this Andrew Netto? And I went, yes, this is Andrew Netto. Who am I speaking to? He's like, this is Harith Iskander. I said, yes, sure this is. I'm Barney the Purple Dinosaur. And he goes, bro, this is actually Harith Iskander. And then I heard his voice and I went, damn, this is Harith. And we got to talking, and he invited me to open for his shows. He says, hey, buddy, listen, I'm having a 5-night run show in the Actors Studio in Bangsa. Would you like to come on board as my opening act? And I got on board as his opening act, and I did reasonably well. And people were very impressed. People started coming out and saying that, this is something that you should pursue. At this point, of course, my family was still very apprehensive about me pursuing something in the arts. And they said, son, this is a good hobby, but you need to complete your degree and get a proper full-time job. Now, it was interesting because they were actually starting to support me in this field. Now, as soon as I entered into that show with Harith, things changed. People started to recognize me. As I went out, people always looked at me and said, "Hey, this is the young boy who performed at Harith's show. It's a 22, 21, 20-year-old boy. It's quite funny, you know. You should pursue this." And it was from there I actually started organizing my own shows. I started performing at also now the now defunct No Black Tie in Kuala Lumpur and Jalan Mesoy near Changkat. I was performing at No Black Tie, and it was a fantastic jazz venue, and I was the first stand-up comedian to have actually performed in the venue. And we used to pack in the shows I used to do it on a Monday night, and I thought Monday was an apt day because people would be stressed from work, they'd had a rough day, and nobody likes a Monday. If they could come out and have a laugh at the end of the day, maybe it'll turn around their week, and that whole week will get a little better. And I did these shows in No Black Tie. We would just get family and friends together. 60 people, 70 people would come out, sell out these shows. I had a lot of support from friends in the media industry who would carry out articles about my shows and little captions in the newspaper, and that was all free advertising. They really helped me with that. Of course, social media played a big part. Things like Facebook at the time were very, very popular to do these shows, to invite people to these shows. And I'd actually gone on and started a string of successful shows in No Black Tie. After which, in 2009, I actually met two of my very good friends till today, Rizal Kamal and Jack Jagannathan from LOL Events. These guys are responsible for bringing some of the biggest acts to Malaysia. They've brought everybody from Russel Peters to Kevin Hart to Gabriel Iglesias to Jeff Dunham to our shows. They've brought live stand-up comedy to our shows, and you have to give these guys props because they have done some of the biggest shows in Malaysia and in the region as well. And we met in 2009 at Zouk Club in Kuala Lumpur, and they were organizing the first ever Comedy Club Asia. This was regular monthly comedy shows, and they invited me at the time together with Terry Johnson, if I'm not mistaken his name was, who was an African-American comedian based out in Singapore, and Jonathan Atherton, talented comedian out of Australia, to come and start the shows in Kuala Lumpur. And I'd gone on to perform for that show and did reasonably well as well. And people really enjoyed their time there. We had about 400 people in that first show, fantastic audience, and it was a monthly thing. So we were seeing the best of international comics that you've never heard of come down to Malaysia every month and have these sellout killer shows in venues around the city centre. In 2012, we had a good working relationship, myself, Rizal, and Jack, and they'd actually called me and he says, "Hey, Netto, listen, we've actually won the bid to bring Russel Peters to Malaysia." Now, at this point, Russel Peters was for me the biggest comedian in the world. He still is in a lot of aspects for me. And he came to Malaysia, and they told me, this is Netto, we got a job for you during his show. And I was like, "Oh, what is it?" He said, "We want you to be his personal liaison for Russell." And this is very exciting. And I was like, "Oh, wow, I get to work with my idol." And I remember when I met him, I was starstruck. I didn't have much words. And then he looked at me and he goes like, "Buddy, can you talk? Do you speak?" And I said, yeah. I said, "I'm just a bit starstruck." He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And we hung out and we spent 2 days together. And on one of the days, the day before his show, the day after the first show, there's 2 sold-out shows in Kuala Lumpur. And Russell looked at me and he says, "Andrew, what are you doing tomorrow night?" And I said, "I'm here. I'm here for at the show just to help you out if you need anything. I'm your running guy." And he goes, "Hey man, do you want to open for my show tomorrow?" He said, "I'll give you 5 minutes on the top of the show," and 5 to 10 minutes. And I went, "Damn, yeah, sure. Why not? This is a life-changing opportunity." And Russell gave me that, I think it was about 10 minutes that I went on before his main opening act. And it was a lot of pressure because I was faced with about 8 to 9,000 Malaysians who 8,000 Malaysians who just sat there, stared dead into my eyes and went, "This Malaysian boy better make us proud." Safe to say, with the grace of God, I did really well. Khairi Jamaluddin, current Minister of technology, I'm not mistaken, his portfolio is. He was actually at that show, and he came and spoke to me after the show, and he says, buddy, I loved your stuff. I even loved the political stuff, man. I hope you have a prosperous career in Malaysia as a stand-up comedian, which was really uplifting words for him. And during that show, it had propelled my popularity and my talent from like here to sky high. I mean, the next thing I knew, people were calling me for corporate events and shows and telling me, they said, Andrew, listen, we really like the stuff we saw. We'd like to hire you. And it was a great run. I was doing constant corporate events, obviously up till this year, and it's always been good. I had experience running a comedy club as well, together with Jack and Rizal in track. I learned a lot from these guys. Learned a lot from the industry at that point. Of course, Malaysian stand-up comedy has raised to new heights. When I first started stand-up comedy, there was only about five maybe performing comedians at the time. I think now we've got over 30 to 40 comedians from all walks of life, from all different nationalities, different faces, both female and male, and it's a booming scene in Malaysia, which is excellent. And today's comedy scene has evolved so much that it's no more like what it used to be. You see so many new shows. There's a rise of two clubs, the Crack House Comedy Club and the Joke Factory, and it's just given this platform for Malaysians to perform, and of course international comedians to perform. This being said, of course, 2020 was a very tough year. I have a full-time job. I work with a prestigious company called Livescape Asia, which is run by a very good friend of mine and my ex-college mate, who's actually my boss now. And it's a group of friends who started this company, and we run successful events across Southeast Asia. Of course, 2020 was tough to say. Just as things were getting better for us, we thought 2020 was our biggest year yet. We suddenly hit the COVID-19 pandemic, which brought us to a screeching halt. It was very difficult, and of course, just as we were recovering and we were pivoting the business, we got hit with our second MCO. So it's been tough on the industry, especially in the entertainment and arts industry, but it's also given time for me as a person to really discover more about myself, to discover hidden talents about myself. I picked up cooking, turned out I'm quite good at it. I didn't realize. It's pivoted. I've got into businesses, various other ventures that I'd never had experience in, everything from medical care to commodities, just to make sure you could keep your head afloat and enjoy the life that I was living way before this pandemic had hit. So it's my advice to everybody out there, for those of you all who are actually watching this, to not give up. If you failed, try and try again, and you will succeed. And I'm blessed because I've had these opportunities. I've created these opportunities for myself in this industry. I'm 33 years old this year, and I feel like my life is just beginning. In terms of this industry, I don't know how long I will stay in the entertainment industry. Maybe tomorrow I'd want to go into the automotive industry or the healthcare industry. I'm willing to try new things just so I know I can one day turn around and say I did it all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. This is an excellent opportunity for me to share my story with everyone here. We've got a stellar lineup of speakers. If you guys like to keep in touch with me, you can follow me on my Instagram. I reply everybody's messages. My handle is Andrew_Netto. Or you could drop me an email at andrew.netto@gmail.com if you'd ever like to keep in touch. Thank you so much for your time. And once again, thank you so much to our organizers for putting this together. My name is Andrew Netto. Much love from Malaysia. Take care and stay safe, everyone.